Chris, let's have an extension from my editorial, your show this evening here on Sky News. Congratulations, we're going to pass a law to deal with 43% of 1% of the world's problems, because I've got a mandate.
Mate, it's time to fill up the bath with water and fill up the cellar with tinned food. Things are going to get tough from here on in, I think. The world's gone batshit crazy. And nowhere is that more clear than in Canberra, where they say they're going to double down on the policies that have given us expensive electricity and energy unreliability. But if they do more of that, it's all going to fix. It's going to fix everything. And yet they're trying to tell us if you do this, if you fiddle around with an extra 15% reduction of 1% of the world's global emissions while China and others continue to increase emissions, we're actually going to stop bushfires. The land of droughts and sweeping plains, the land of floods and droughts is going to suddenly going to turn into the green fields of England. It's absurd. It's scientifically, factually, logically absurd and insulting to run this stuff by the Australian public. But the trouble is, it's not just the Greens and the teals and Labor running this. The trouble is that half the Liberal Party pushed this nonsense. I saw Simon Birmingham today saying that he would happily vote for this target if he thought it was necessary. So, the reason, in my view, the main reason the Liberals, the coalition, lost government so convincingly is because they just caved into all this nonsense. There was no alternative put forward. And they don't show any signs yet of actually grasping it. I mean, they need to double down on this, because this country is going to be headed for very, very difficult times thanks to these policies. And guess what? Spoiler alert, we're still going to get floods and droughts and heat waves and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, again, I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't clear from Labor's perspective that obviously 43%, there's no mystery what their target was. It's not like I was quiet about it during the election. Everyone could hear it all over the place, no matter how many mattresses they had up against the wall. But the reality is that, OK, they've already signed it. You don't need the piece of legislation. Instead, the piece of legislation is about political wedge on the Liberals and trying to find a way to deal with the Greens. But again, everyone thinks that all of these emissions cuts are only going to come from getting rid of coal-fired power. I repeat the numbers, that about 20% is the transport sector and the agriculture sector as well. Where is the mandate on that? Where is the explanation on what they plan to do with all of that? Because I tell you what, they've got a bit of work to do right now in the transport sector, where I repeat, I'm sorry for putting the glasses on, Toyota, Mazda, Hyundai, Kia, Mitsubishi, Ford, MG, Mercedes-Benz, Subaru, Isuzu Utes, Nissan, GWM, Volkswagen, BMW, Suzuki, Audi, LDV, Honda, Volvos, Jeeps, Renaults, Lexuses, Skodas, Rams, Sanyongs, a Mini, a Porsche, Land Rover, Peugeot, Chevy. What else? Well, a whole bunch of others, including Lamborghinis and Ferraris, were sold more than Teslas last month.
Well, I'm not sure, unfortunately, Paul, any of that is relevant going forward. I mean, the one point that Chris did miss was that Simon Birmingham didn't just say he might have voted for this bill. What he actually said was the Liberal Party will take a tougher target going into the next election. So you just got to understand the political ship has sailed. The political market has moved. And the point that Chris doesn't seem to want to accept is that the seats that the Liberal Party lost to the Teals were lost to candidates who wanted to go further than the Liberal Party were prepared to advocate. So
exactly.
The majority of the seats that the Liberal parties need to win back are seats that voted for 43% or higher. So the Liberal Party, like they've done in Victoria, like they've already done in New South Wales, like they've done in Tasmania, they're already moving to a tougher target. This debate is effectively politically over. To your point about cars,
this is
Paul, you've
exactly
just got to
what I
look
lamented.
Overseas to the car makers, the actual car producers have all announced. I don't know of one car maker in the world that is not moving to not phase out tomorrow, but accepting that the sort of 2035 figure that the ACT's talked to is where they're moving to with their car production. So you can keep telling everybody that the cars in 2022 that were sold were X, but the cars going forward produced by car manufacturers are moving to electric vehicles or
my point,
potentially other sources.
My substantive point, though, and Corey, I'll bring you on this here, is that when people have the choice, they choose Ferraris and Jaguars over Teslas. Now, the market, if the market decided, the market is deciding that people want to get around in Hiluxes, but the manufacturers will turn around and slowly start to turn off this spigot. But again, I repeat, everyone thinks that emissions only come from changes to the electricity grid. Where was the national conversation about transport? Where was the national conversation about agriculture? Because both were missing, and people will notice what the consequences are. Imagine literally the New Zealand-style tax on burping and farting.
Well, that's exactly right, Paul. Can I just say this, though, that if Ferrari made a man-sized car, I would have ordered one already. Right? They're just made for a little man. You've just got to have a big, manly car, right? But this is the problem, right? The devil is always in the detail. And can I say that whenever you were told that a debate is over, whenever we've got near universal acclaim by the media and the political elite, bad things happen. And that's what Stephen has just spoken about now. The debate is over, maybe, because half the Liberals are hopeless. But the fact is, we've got to be able to have a conversation about what this is actually going to cost us, what it's going to cost the country, what contribution is it going to make to climate change, and will it make any difference at all while China is emitting anything it wants to? Correct. That's a debate we still need to have, and unfortunately it's been sidelined and trashed by people saying the science is settled. As I said, whenever there's universal insistence that something is settled and done, bad things happen. So well, by the way, don't we forget, where do the solar panels and the wind farms come from? They come from China, specifically a part of the world that's using slave labour. But it's okay. I've got preferences of Greens and Labor. And where, Paul, are they going to go in 20 years' time? They're going to go into landfill. Yep. And because they're all toxic. It's just a dreadful circumstance, but it's very short-sighted. And so that's my huge concern right now. And we've seen it in Holland, we've seen it in Norway, where they're coming for the farmers. They're saying you're not allowed to use nitrogen. The food supplies are drying up. And you've got, in Canada, they've now invested, the government there has invested something like $9 million in a grasshopper farm, basically, because they're saying people need to eat grasshoppers because meat's going to be too expensive and it's bad for the climate.
Believe it or not, in the snack capital of the world, when I was in the US just a couple of weeks ago, at Servos you can buy a packet of insects as a snack. No thanks. Unless they're dipped in cheese or deep fried, there's no chance they pass these lips.